Penguin Random House Audio presents The Undiscovered Country, Triumph, Tragedy, and the Shaping of the American West by Paul Andrew Hutton. Read for you by Jonathan Yen. Note to listeners, this audiobook includes a downloadable PDF which contains the maps from the book. For my children, Laura, Caitlin, Lorena, Chelsea, and Paul Andrew, Westerners all. The undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all. William Shakespeare, Hamlet. Author's note. There is some confusion and even controversy over the proper appellation for Native Americans: Indian, American Indian, Indigenous people, or Native American. All these names have been used through the years as word preference has changed over time. Indian is commonly used, as in the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C., the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, or the Plains Indian Museum at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. Indian is still widely accepted in Indian country in the West, although the name has fallen into disfavor among academics and younger Native Americans who now prefer indigenous. Most Native people prefer to be called by their tribal name. In this book, Indian is sometimes used in a quote or within historical context. The more generic Native is often used, although wherever possible, tribal names are given. Preface. The true point of view in the history of this nation is not the Atlantic coast, it is the Great West, declared Frederick Jackson Turner in 1893. The Undiscovered Country tells the epic story of American westward expansion from the era of the American Revolution to 1900. The book's title, a nod to Shakespeare, refers to the dark irony of how the conquest of the West built a new nation, but at the cost of the destruction of another people and the pristine land that had sustained them. For both those coming into this new land and those already there, it became a story of foreshadowing death. The book employs multiple biographies of both famed American frontiersmen and leading Native Americans to chronologically tell the story of the triumphs and tragedies that marked the westward movement from Braddock's defeat in 1755 during the final French and Indian War to the murder of Sitting Bull and the resultant Wounded Knee massacre in 1890. The seven main protagonists, Daniel Boone, Red Eagle, Davy Crockett, Mangus Coloradus, Kit Carson, Sitting Bull, and William Buffalo Bill Cody, are the biographical thread that weaves the narrative together across 4 generations. These may seem familiar names, yet few know the truth behind their incredible life stories. In some cases, their lives interrelate, but in all cases they carry forward the epic tale of this first epoch of American history. These 7 larger-than-life figures were central to the creation of a national myth of progress, redemption, and glorious conquest that became part of the identity of a new nation. At the same time, some of them became symbols of heroic resistance. For each of them, save Cody, the winning of the West proved a hollow victory indeed. But the legendary construct that exploited their adventures, both real and imagined, proved irresistible to Americans, no matter where they came from, as well as other peoples around the world. This story was very much an Anglo, or white American, story, yet it appealed to wildly diverse national and international audiences. In form, it celebrated men who were masters of both the environment and their own destinies, but in reality the great forces that shaped the West were rarely understood by the main protagonists. By 1900, the story of the West had become an agreed-upon creation myth, as Buffalo Bill Cody presented a highly romanticized version to captivated monarchs and common folk alike with his Wild West extravaganza, The Story of America. This narrative also explores manifest destiny, the concept that shaped 19th-century American cultural and political thought. Daniel Boone with the migration up the Cumberland Gap and the Revolutionary War. Red Eagle, the Creek leader who allied with Tecumseh to halt the American pioneers. Davy Crockett, who fought Red Eagle and came to symbolize the rise of the common man and the triumph of the New West as a political movement in Washington. Mangus Coloradus, who united all the Apache bands against the white invaders and led his people in the great battle of Apache Pass, only to then fall victim to American perfidy. Kit Carson, leading America across the Santa Fe Trail, conquering California, fighting the Civil War in the West, and then reluctantly becoming the nation's most famous Indian fighter. Sitting Bull, rallying the final native resistance, culminating in both the great victory at the Little Bighorn and the catastrophe at Wounded Knee. And Buffalo Bill Cody, who fought the final Indian Wars before taking it all on the road with his celebrated Wild West show, which entertained the world for a quarter century. All contributed to the epic saga of the American West. It is a tale of both heroic conquest and ghastly violence, of sacrifice and greed, and of man-made wonders and environmental spoliation. That new land, the progenitor of a great nation, finally had no place for any of these legendary figures. They had built something grand, but at a terrible price, that quickly morphed into a story that was both wildly romantic and oddly tragic. The American frontier movement has proven eternally fascinating to both American and world audiences. The subject of countless memoirs, histories, poems, paintings, novels, films, and television shows, it has become America's epic, a creation myth as powerful as the tales of Troy or Camelot. Why the West Matters. During colonial times and in the days of the early Republic, frontier folk were disdained by the guardians of American culture, such as it was, as dangerous characters of low breeding, prone to democratic anarchy and fits of violence. Politics were controlled by the elites of New England and Tidewater, Virginia. Then, in the 1820s, Americans began to search for a distinctive identity separate from their European ancestors. The powerfully symbolic deaths of both Thomas Jefferson and John Adams on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1826, was a major impetus, for the new generation felt keenly the passing of the Revolutionary generation, not unlike the present uneasiness at the passing of the World War II generation. Americans turned to the West in search of new figures to lead the country forward, men who were masters of both the hostile environment and their own destiny. The success of James Fenimore Cooper's Leatherstocking Tales, and most notably his Last of the Mohicans in 1826, along with Timothy Flint's acclaimed biography of Daniel Boone in 1833, helped to create a literary ideal of the American frontiersman, as well as encouraged a successful series of border dramas on the stage, such as Nick of the Woods and The Lion of the West, based on Davy Crockett. At the same time, the rise of Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, Sam Houston, Crockett, and other Westerners marked a shift in political power from the East to the New West and ushered in the so-called Age of the Common Man. The martyrdom of Crockett at the Alamo, the celebrated explorations of Kit Carson and John Charles Fremont, the epic migration to Oregon, immortalized by America's first great Western historian, Francis Parkman, in his 1847 Oregon Trail, all serve to idealize the bold frontiersman as representative of what an American should and could be. Samuel Woodworth's popular 1822 song, The Hunters of Kentucky,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?